Hello YouTube, welcome to this video titled Surviving Novice Syndrome. I briefly mentioned that affliction in my Asberg video that you can find in the description, which is a complete guide to muscle growth. And I realized one thing, I had never heard anyone on this platform actually mention it. And especially when it comes to preventing it for young lifters and for people who are getting started regardless of their age. And therefore I found out that there was actually a lot to say about the matter. And I wanted to help you guys because I understand that even though I might be more advanced and a lot of people on this channel are also on the path to lifting, many of you are just getting started or it's your first year. And you're still navigating a lot of issues and you would like some help. Well, I'm here to bring that for you because I have a lot of experience in lifting and I can save you a lot of time and heartbreak. So today, consider this video a survival guide because I did not title this video innocently. It truly is going to be a matter of you surviving that time period. You'll see that throughout the years as you progress and you move on to the upward stage and more advanced levels, it's going to be modified. The game is going to be different. But to me, as a novice, the only thing you need to do is survive. It's hold tight. And you'll see that the entire idea around the video is centered around that. So, what exactly is Novice Syndrome? Novice Syndrome is the disease, the illness that is going to attack you when you start lifting. And that actually results in a lot of people stopping and quitting at some point. It's a syndrome that is fairly unavoidable, although you'll see that certain individuals are more prone to it and certain environments are more conducive. It is, however, 100% healable, meaning that you can always overcome it. And I want you to overcome it for the reasons I'm going to explain. The reason also why I'm so invested in the topic and what I want to share with you is because I personally see the lifting community, regardless of your specialty, as my family. We are a big family of iron. And I want each and every one of us to strive and to be better. The problem is that Novice Syndrome will do the exact opposite. It's going to prevent you from actually going to where you want to go and you're eventually going to quit. I want to prevent that. I want to keep you within the family. I don't want you to leave. Because we lose a lot of people to Novice Syndrome. And when I say a lot of people, it's a euphemism. In reality, we lose most of the people who join this community to Novice Syndrome. And if I were to give you stats, I would say maybe 90% of all people actually succumb to Novice Syndrome. It's how serious this is. Because there are going to be stages during your lifting career where you're going to be tested, and Novice Syndrome is one of them. It's a syndrome that manifests itself through multiple symptoms that I'm going to explain. I'm also going to explain how to heal from them, how to prevent them, etc. Because it's not just one thing. But understand first and foremost that this is about surviving. So I'm not going to talk about optimization today. You will see that the very idea of trying to push novices towards optimized programs is already a part of Novice Syndrome in and of itself. And also that what I'm going to give in this video is mostly going to relate to philosophical, spiritual applications and just mindset. Not necessarily not to do curls or to avoid certain exercises. If you're interested in such a video, you can check the description again. I made a full video about novice programs and the problems with them. So everything that is actually practical in terms of lifting weights with your body will be in there. Today, I'm actually going to focus on the more important stuff because Novice Syndrome doesn't really concern itself with the physical. It's mostly mental, and yet we lose most people to it. And you could already think, okay, isn't that strange? Shouldn't most people give up because it's tough to lift? Well, yeah, some do, but the vast majority don't. Actually, what you're describing is what could be called Normie Syndrome. Normie Syndrome is what precedes Novice Syndrome. It is the step that you have to take before you actually pick up weights. And if 90% of all lifters give up because of Novice Syndrome, the vast majority of the human population give up because of Normie Syndrome. Because lifters are rare. Most people don't even lift. And those people forever remain normies. They don't even open themselves up to Novice Syndrome. You have to actually start lifting to be exposed to that disease, to that illness. I also want to make clear that I use the term novice even though I do not like it. The idea of novice, intermediate, advanced, I have already redefined in a video. To me, the way it's being used nowadays is toxic. So keep in mind that by novice, I just mean people who are getting started. I'm not saying that you are supposed to have a certain bench or a certain squat. I don't think like this. To me, a novice is a beginner. It's the reason why this is a beginner's guide to lifting, to help you lift for a very long time. So, because I want to prevent your desertion, I want to also make clear that this is going to ride on mental toughness a ton, because desertion is that. It's you being too mentally weak and leaving the ranks of our lifting army, quote unquote. It's not going to be because an outside force has actually pushed you outside of lifting. You can make excuses and say that it's because of this or that or my job or any reason you can give to yourself. At the end of the day, you're lying to yourself. The reason is you. Novice syndrome is you giving yourself up in reality. You are actively just disappointing yourself. But I understand that a lot of people don't even see it coming. So I'm going to make sure I show you all of the behind the scenes of that syndrome so that we can prevent it and just kill it from the start. Since people who give up, of course, are lost. We lose them. They're out of the community, because to be a lifter, you have to lift. It's across the board a rule. You cannot be a lifter just by sitting on your ass and watching YouTube fitness. It doesn't work like that. You have to be active. It's the beauty of this sport in reality. Those who do are those who know, and vice versa to an extent. The reason why this is so important and why novice syndrome claims so many lives is because novices are the majority. If you look at the entire globality of the world, the normies within the normies are novices, and novices is the second biggest circle within that population. Because of course, there are many people who start lifting, and that's great. We're welcoming them in the family. That's most excellent. And the issue that arises quickly is that you realize that that population doesn't retransfer. Meaning that in a perfect world, there would be just as many novices as intermediates, as advanced, etc. And the only gap in between would be the generational gap, meaning that the time when the person starts would define where they stand. Nowadays, it's not the case. If novices are this is the circle of novices. The circle of intermediates is maybe this. And advanced is 1/100th of my pinky finger. Why? Because the more we advance, the more people give up. And that is normal in reality, it's natural selection, I'm not against that. But the issue here is that natural selection is being aided by novice syndrome. So if we can actually cure novice syndrome, we can actually make the natural selection easier to go through, because what it should be referred to here is artificial selection. Novice syndrome is an artificial selection of sorts that is taking people away from lifting that should still be lifting in reality. They got sliced and they got sliced by something that was 100% preventable. And so I want to make sure that, of course, we prevent it. Because in the life of a lifter, of any lifter in reality, there are going to be great filters. I'm stealing the great filter concept from the Fermi paradox. If you don't know, I'm going to very quickly explain it. The Fermi paradox seeks to explain why, if there were undocumented extraterrestrial existences, the reason why they haven't contacted us yet. And it explains it very simply. It states that there is a strong chance that we are just a speck of dust in the galaxy and that we are not visible yet. And the reason why we're not in contact with anyone, or the reason why we might be the only living beings, is because there is such a thing as great filters that arise every thousands years or so and destroy civilizations, destroy planets. And those filters actually work as natural selection. Those who go through are the species or the entire planet predatory existences that make it through. I apply it to lifting because it's exactly the same for us. You are going to encounter those great filters. There are events or environments that are going to put you to the test. And novice syndrome is the second one. The first one being normie syndrome, just overall general laziness. Novice syndrome is the second one. The second one that claims the second most lives, because most people don't make it through. That syndrome claims the most lives in our community. And understanding that principle of filter is going to be extremely important, because it's going to present this entire video and this entire concept as a challenge. It is a challenge. It's something that you actually need to go through. We all went through it, and it's a rite of passage. It's what makes you worthy as a lifter. The reason why it exists in the first place is to weed out the weak. Because even with that video I'm going to make, some people are still not going to be able to make it, and these people are just too weak. That is the more natural side of the artificial filter. Because within that very filter, there is also a part that is man-made, and that part is YouTube Fitness. YouTube Fitness is also part of that great filter and a big part of Novice Syndrome. So throughout this video, I'm going to be referring to both natural elements that are going to arise and create difficulties for you, and man-made elements that are just going to constitute things that are going to also try to push you away from lifting. And I want to insist on this. Be very careful with YouTube Fitness, because yes, it brings a lot of help. Yes, it is, in a sense, the Library of Alexandria of lifting. But it's also a very dangerous place for novices, because you are essentially prey. If I were to liken you to an animal, you are the equivalent of those baby turtles that spurt out of the ground, out of the sand, and try to reach the sea. The sea is your goal. To get there, you have to be extremely vulnerable for a while, and you are the target of seagulls. The seagulls are fitness YouTubers. They're trying to pick your brains out. And in this case, in modern life, it's going to be for their own interest, for financial gains, etc., etc. Your goal as the turtle is to navigate as much as possible. So not only is the beach going to be tough to navigate, that's the natural filter, on top of that, the seagulls also target you. That's the man-made filter, the animal filter. You need to be wary of both. Never understand your status as a prey. You are a dumb, bumbling novice, and that's perfectly fine. You're just getting started. But keep that in mind. Your goal is to make it to the sea, okay? This is our goal here. So, this is very surprising in a sense, because if you think about it, what I just described, just like with the life of a turtle, should be the easiest part. On paper, it's the easiest part. When the turtle makes it to the sea, it's, yes, very long for that poor turtle who's just born. But in reality, if you compound that with the rest of the life of the turtle, it might have been a peak of dangerosity, but afterwards there's still a lot of things that are going to happen in the turtle's life. Same for you. Don't panic. It's just going to be a rocky moment. It's the reason why you have to survive it. Why? Because those who survive it make it. And so your only goal should be to survive. It's the reason why also I chose that thumbnail. So I'm going to be talking about the sea a lot in this video because I like my metaphors and it actually fits a lot. So, novices are dealing with the most danger, paradoxically also during the time period where lifting is the easiest. That is the big problem that is going to really make it tough for you, because you're going to find out that in terms of just raw challenge, being a novice is excellent. It's the best time period of your life. Are you kidding me? You progress like this, you see muscle change all the time, you have fire to go into the gym, you finally feel your body give you all that endorphin and that dopamine. It's excellent. And yet, again, we lose most people to it. So what is going on? Well, what is going on is very simple. Most of the lifestyle and of the life expectancy of the novice is being poisoned by YouTube Fitness. And this is very sad. It's a very sad thing to say. But YouTube is both a blessing and a curse. You're getting a lot of good things from this platform, but it's also taking a lot from you, especially for novices who tend to be the one who spend the most time on this platform, which is damaging in a sense. And I'll explain why later. But I want you to keep that in a corner of your brain. YouTube is also very dangerous. It's part of the great filter, so keep watch for it. And in terms of, again, trying to liken what a novice is to something that you can relate to, I like to think of the novice period as childhood. In a sense, it's when you're the most innocent, and it's when you're starting to make your first experiences. I am deeply dedicated in keeping that as pure as possible, and it should remain pure for you, because just like a proper childhood, a proper novice period is going to be the foundation for the rest of your career. If it's messed up, fucked up, and poisoned again, you're going to have a very tough time. Just like the poor baby turtle who gets his fin, or whatever you call it, la nageoire, pecked off, you're going to have a tough time swimming in the sea afterwards. So we want to preserve you. Again, surviving novice syndrome. We want to keep you intact, because again, being a novice is easy. So you shouldn't arrive into intermediate waters as a veteran with war wounds all over your body and scars. This is not normal. You should remain your innocence. You should enjoy the novice period. It should be the most fun, the most exciting. It shouldn't be something that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And yet, many people had very bad experiences during the novice period because of novice syndrome. And we're going to get started. This was the introduction. I'm going to start with my points. I just want to make clear also that this very childhood needs to be preserved and prolonged as much as possible. You do not want to rush it. Many novices do that. They want to be done with being novices. Why? Being a novice is negatively correlated, right? Because you're the kid, you're a baby, right? You quickly want to grow up. It's like children. They can't wait to grow up, but they don't realize what they're leaving behind. And a lot of the time when they grow older, when they finally realize, they start missing their childhood. Enjoy your childhood. Don't let people rush you out of it. Take your time. Okay, now that I set up the entire scene and ideas surrounding the very concept, we're going to be able to start. The very first advice I have for you in terms of surviving novice syndrome is going to be to take your time. You saw that one coming. Taking your time is essential. You are being told by the entirety of this platform that you should be a novice for like 5-6 months. And I myself have uttered these words. But in my mouth, it doesn't mean the same thing. When I say that, it means that you get 6 months of just being like a bubblehead, and then you start paying attention to your programs, etc. That's the moment. For a lot of other fitness YouTubers, what they mean is they want you completely out of the novice phase by 6 months and into intermediate waters. This is not possible. Again, it's like taking that baby turtle and tossing it in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. That turtle is gonna die. Look at baby sharks, not the song, the animal. When they start, where are they? They're in a nursery, a place with algae, a place with shallow waters. Why? They can actually grow there. They can survive there. And once they're big and strong, they're going to the deeper waters. YouTube Fitness has taken you by the leg, dragged you into the deep water, pushed you, and then said, okay, swim. You know what that's called? Yes, it's natural selection, but it's also, at the end of the day, a selection of the strongest. Only very strong lifters make it out of there, and all of the weaklings die off. It's the reason why I also want to prevent novice syndrome, is because we're losing the weakest members. And you could say, okay, well, fuck them. Well, no, because I was one of them. And I can tell you that if I had went through the regime of YouTube Fitness, I wouldn't be there today. And yet, look at me now. Meaning that we're losing valuable elements. I truly am thinking in terms of the collective here. We want to save as many people as possible. So be very patient. Take your time, both for progression and knowledge. You don't need to absorb everything super fast. You don't even need it to progress in reality. You just need to know enough. And I really encourage you to stop spending so much time watching YouTube Fitness and spend more time training, exercising the body, trying new stuff. This is going to be much more important for you as you age into your training career. The goal is to stick to it. You are just a novice. If you look at the time period in which you're going to be training, if you want to have a great body, this is the novice period. It's nothing, right? It's going to be just a tiny speck. If that speck is slightly longer, it's not the end of the world. Even if you spend 1 year and a half, 2 years as a novice, who cares? You're going to spend the next 20 years lifting if you're serious about it, okay? So don't be rushed. It's not a race. It has never been a race. 1, there's no competitor around you. 2, no one has a chronometer in their hands. And 3, at the end of the day, the first who crosses the line is not the winner, because you are not racing against people. This is you against you, at least for the people like me who see bodybuilding as the development of the self and not just something to pin against others to get a medal. Point number 2 is also going to concern the way you're going to behave within the mass of YouTube Fitness. I want to leave that mass. I want you to leave that mass. Why do you want to leave the mass? For one simple reason. The mass succumbs to novice syndrome. The mass is, for the most part, the ones that are responsible for the actual mountain of corpses that get caught by the great filter. There is a reason why we lose so many people. It's because they're made of the same leather. They're all the same, they have the same trajectory, and therefore they get caught the same way. The very easy way to avoid that is to just not behave like this. So leave the mass. Do not engage in that type of groupthink that leads many people to giving up. Select your own goal and reason for why you're doing this. Do not let someone else tell you why you're training and why you should be training, especially the ones that tell you that there are good things to train for and bad things to train for. No, that's bullshit. If tomorrow you decided that you want to train to bend spoons and be the best spoon bender in the world, then that's your calling. Do it. If 1,000 people tell you it's stupid, so what? It's not their life. Do what makes you happy inside. It shouldn't even have to be said, but many people die of novice syndrome because of that. They lived and they never know why, and one day they wake up and they think, okay, I just spent 2 years doing something I have absolutely no passion for, I wasted my time, let me quit. It's the exact opposite of the sunken coast fallacy. It's when, actually some people actually suffer from that, but it's when you are so desperate in the time you wasted that you don't even want to put in an extra year or 2 years to redirect yourself towards what you want. You just say, you know what, screw it, and you leave. This is heartbreaking. Don't let yourself be that guy. Be true to yourself. Find your reason. That's the reason you're going to be calling upon when it becomes difficult. When novice syndrome starts knocking on the door, you're going to have that to remember, okay? When you consider quitting, try thinking about why you started in the first place. If you can't recall what it is, you're going to be in big, big trouble. And that goes for big YouTubers as well. Don't let them stir you, okay? Again, you're on that raft. That's in the thumbnail, okay? You're the one on the raft. You're the one who's trying to seek land. Don't let someone else push you. There's already going to be the wind. The natural filter is already there. Don't let some magical hand push the boat towards a direction or another. They're not concerned or invested in your survival. You are. That's the big thing with us, with novice syndrome. Novices are a pool of people to be abused. As I said, you are just prey. Whatever happens to the pool of novices doesn't matter to YouTube Fitness and fitness YouTubers. Why? Because it's ever renewing itself. There is a new group of novices every single day that logs onto YouTube Fitness. So even if you lie to them, even if you hurt their progress, even if you kill their mindset, doesn't really matter. These people are going to quit. Novice syndrome dictates they're going to leave. So they leave, a new batch arrive, you abuse the next batch, etc., etc., rinse and repeat. The only person responsible for making sure you don't fall prey to that is yourself. And that is going to be that create a strong individuality, leave the mass, select your own goal. Point number 3, don't let channels define you, figuratively and literally. Channels in terms, again, of the current, of the water. Don't let a channel push the raft and the boat into a direction you didn't choose. You decide. You're the one who's going to decide where you go. And more literally, I've seen a meme recently that made me laugh and at the same time was so true that it scared me a little bit. It's a meme that said that every single lifter, young lifter, molded their personality and their lifting career after one of 6 channels. And they showed like Bugenhagen and other big channels. And it's true. That's the problem. It is true. Because again, the novices are like the baby turtles, or in this case, a baby bird. It arrives in this world, it gets plucked, and the first thing it sees becomes its mama. The first thing you see becomes your mom. For a lot of novices, they arrived on YouTube Fitness, they clicked on one page, and that's their guy. They will believe everything the guy has to say, they will worship him like a god, and they will try and copy him in every single aspect. You don't want to do that. It should be clear that it's not the way. And yet it is. In this day and age, you have a bunch of fanboys and copycats who don't even realize that they're not lifting for themselves. Novice syndrome catches these guys because in reality, they're not even really lifting. They're just playing pretend. So at this point, we already lost them. And I want to make clear one thing. I would hate for nothing more than if in a year or two, I'm actually going to pause for 1 second. All right. There is a slight tornado warning, but it should be fine. So, I believe, at point number 3. Be careful who you follow on this platform because, as I explained, a lot of people start blindly following the first guy they clicked on. And the problem is that via the algorithm, this means that you most likely clicked on a big page. And while there are good fitness pages that have a ton of subscribers, the vast majority are garbage. And that's a big issue in reality. If you look at great filters again, a big artificial filter is shitty YouTube fitness pages that have stopped making anything actually relevant for novices and just make drama videos or entertainment, but they suck in the biggest amount of novices. So we lose them all. Look at the turtles again. It's as if there was a massive bag open at at sea level, and most of the turtles went in like a transparent bag. They could see the sea through. They could actually see the ocean through, and they thought that going in, they would be and gain access to the ocean. And since the most turtle go into the bag, they think, okay, this is actually the right way. But no, they end up in a bag. They never make it to the ocean. They never progress. They died because of Novice Syndrome. So pay attention, okay? Keep your eyes open. If you want a good way to tell between a bad and a good channel, I made a videos about it very recently. You can look it up. So don't be a copycat. Don't be that guy. Always look for multiple sources. You don't want to only take your news from one source. A multiplicity of them is always better because that way you won't be misguided. I know it's a little bit more confusing because now you don't have that one dude that you can just listen to, but it is very important. And I don't remember if I said it or not. I think I was interrupted by the tornado alarm, but what I wanted to say is this. If in a year or two, there are a bunch of guys who end up being NH fanboys, who only watch my channel, and who have molded themselves after me, I'm going to be very disappointed. Because this is not the message I'm sharing on this platform and on this very existence as a whole. So multiple sources and develop your own judgment. A lot of people ask me, how do I know if I can trust this guy? How about developing your own judgment? Do you also ask me if you can eat that yogurt or if it's perempted? Do you ask me if you take certain life decisions or not? No, you take them yourself. You don't depend on others to take decisions for you, right? You're a grown man or a grown woman. And even if you're a young kid or even if you're someone who's completely clueless about lifting, understand that we all started there. And even though we all got some information, just like myself, from YouTube Fitness, at no point did I have like a check mark next to the information saying this was verified by the debunking agency of fitness and it's approved. No, I had to make my own choices and my own experience. And you should as well. I know it's easy nowadays to pick a guru and just follow them, but keep in mind that these guys are leading you straight into a wall. The only way for you to stay on that raft is actually to claim your own agency, to actually develop your own individuality and be yourself. You're lifting to be yourself, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. You're not lifting to become that guy or this guy. You're lifting to become the best version of yourself. How are you going to get there if you constantly copy others? Don't do that. Don't copy their knowledge, don't copy their methods, especially their methods. I see people who say, oh, he looks like this, so I'm going to train like him and I look like him. Wrong, you won't. You're going to continue being small because you just don't have the understanding of his methods to make them work and you're not him. Okay, now the next step is also based on methodology of training. You want to stick to programs. And for novices, this is already going to be a big thing. If we could actually get most novices to start with a program, it would be magnificent. The reason why a program is so important is not just through the sanctity of a piece of paper. It's more than that. The reason why it matters so much is that it is a written statement of your consistency in terms of what you put in. The program clearly stipulates what you're supposed to do. And the issue is that I myself started without a program, meaning that I didn't start with someone else's program. I started with my own program from the get-go. But most novices will not have the discipline to do that. They'll just fuck around. So you have to start with an actual program. A program that is going to be adapted because a lot of novice programs are also artificial filters. They're going to make you quit. They're designed to make you quit. As I've explained, if you look at certain weightlifting or powerlifting systems, especially weightlifting in like Eastern countries, what they do is this. They make the training so difficult that it breaks normal people and the only survivors are extremely strong. They're like the outliers and the freaks. That's great for the coaches and the national team because they get the cream of the crop. But what if you're not the cream of the crop? YouTube Fitness is making you go through that same filter. You're gonna break. This is what I said, that most of the novice we losers we shouldn't have lost in the first place. If they hadn't started with YouTube Fitness or programs from YouTube Fitness, they would have struggled as the weaklings they are, just like me, for the first few years. Then they would have figured it out through experience and they would have stuck with it. But because they were actually confronted with something that was just too difficult for them to handle, they perished. So avoid those programs. If you want a good novice program, you can check the description. I put mine in there. It's accessible for novices. It's going to keep you going. It's going to help you surmount novice syndrome. And you want to actually stick to it. You don't want to program hop. I get asked all the time, when should I switch programs? Every 6 months, every year. I hear arbitrary numbers being thrown around all the time. I hear fitness YouTubers who say, oh, you need to shock the muscles. You want to change programs every 4 months. That's bullshit. It's hogwash. It makes no sense. The people who say, oh, if you stop lifting for a while, it's going to resensitize the muscle, whatever that means. The muscle doesn't need to be resensitized. It's always sensitive to work and to muscle fiber damage. The people who say that are essentially stipulating that there exists a state in which the muscle fibers have attained such resilience from exercise that they cannot be broken down. Guys, please contact the closest scientific paper. This is a massive discovery. You have essentially discovered a state of indestructibility for the human body. That's major, okay? The problem is that it doesn't exist. So don't worry about that type of things. Don't program hop. Stick to a program. If it's a good novice program and it's adaptable, you should be able to milk a lot of gains from it. But you also don't want to be a one-trick pony. Don't be the guy who sticks to a program religiously and who refuses to switch. If at some point you truly are at your wit's end and you cannot make the program work anymore, now it's acceptable to change. You're not chained to the program. You have the right to look for something else. But it needs to be rare. It's the reason why all of you guys who are like program collectors and you have 25 programs and you switch from one to the other, there's no wonder you make no progress. It's because of what you do. It's the methods that you apply that are wrong. Stick to programs, make your progression. If you can progress on the program and you've tried 5, most likely the problem is not the program, it's you. You want to switch when progress stops, and you also want to learn how to program. We're going back to the very idea of what a novice is. If the novice state is childhood, and novice syndrome is like polio 400 years back, then the graduation from that time period is when you finally start to understand how the world works and you start taking your own decisions. Again, as a novice, you are uncertain, you don't know much. So you need your experiences, you need to take small risks here and there to get to where you want to be. And where you want to be is programming. You want to write your own programs eventually, you want to be the master of the ship. But that's going to be for later, okay? That's going to be for the episode about intermediate syndrome. For now, you're surviving, okay? You're on the raft. The only thing we ask of the novice on the raft is to not jump in the water and not do anything crazy to sink the raft. It's your only job. Stay on that raft, okay? And to do that, again, don't program hop, but don't also stick to one for too long. Now, let's get into something that I think is critical, and that is what I call progression addiction. As I said, the novice period is like a honeymoon period because you progress super fast no matter what you do, and this is an amount of progression you will never replicate again. I hear many people use the example of progressive overload to explain why the natural limit exists, and they say, oh, if we could all progress like we did as novices, we would eventually bench 1,000 pounds. And they're correct. But in their correctness, they're also stupid because they're misapplying a good example. What this example should be used for instead is this. The amount of progression you make as a novice is extremely high. And the one that you're going to make afterwards is small, meaning that you might go from 0 to 250 bench in a span of a year or a year and a half, okay? Arbitrary. And then you might gain 50 pounds in the span of the next 2 years. So that's a lot less gains, right? And a lot of people look at this and they say, okay, 80% of all the gains you make are made in the first year or 2 years. That's wrong. Because that's thinking of lifting as something that stops after the 4th or 5th year. you will keep progressing afterwards. The easiest portion of the progression happens first. The 50 pounds you put afterwards on the bench are more valuable because they took more work. And the more time you spend in, the more work you're going to have to put in to get low result. It never actually ends, but it slows down tremendously. As a novice, you're not concerned with that. Everything goes lightning quick. So guess what that means? It means you're going to slow down. You don't want to go fast. And I know it's contradictory because everyone on this platform tells you, oh, rush as fast as possible, get a 3-plate bench, do this, do that, bulk up as much as you can. No, this is not conducive to hypertrophy and a good physique. You want to actually slow it down. Take a deep breath because the amount of progression you get when you start is going to dictate your standards for the rest of your lifting career. And a lot of people are actually sick of progression addiction. They are hurt by it. It's a symptom of novice syndrome. What is progression addiction? Progression addiction is the inability to move on from the novice period of progression, meaning that after that, any amount of progression in terms of strength or muscle that does not match what they experienced at the start is going to be deemed unworthy. They refuse to go through it because it doesn't bear enough fruits. Guess what happens to these people? Filtered. Off the table, they disappear, we lose them. Why? Because they're spoiled brat babies who can't actually stick to the work if they don't have massive rewards in returns. Understand that the novice period is the one where you get the most bounties for the less work, but don't let it get to your head, okay? Understand that this is temporary, and because it is, you want to stretch that time period as long as possible. This is your childhood, this is your playground. Actually enjoy it, spend a lot of time in it. Noob gains are spoiling you, as I just said. Slow down. You're literally getting spoiled by noob gains because, as I said, all of the time, the progression you'll get afterwards is going to be so small that you might even convince yourself that it's not happening. Trust me, it is happening, just much slower. Point number 6. You want to think long-term gains. All right? Always think long-term. Right now, you're on the raft, as I said. It's fairly passive. Not much is asked of you. You have plenty of time to think about the future. This is now the period for you to think about the future, what you want your goal to be, what your future specialization might be. Do you want to go into strength? What type of strength? Bodybuilding? What type of body do you want? Etc. It's a contemplation of sorts, just like children who grow up. A kid who grows up, I believe, should be given a lot of leisure time that they're going to use to actually sharpen who they're going to be as an adult. If you burden the kid with chores or with child labor, you're going to ruin their future self. This is what YouTube Fitness and Novice programs have done. They bombard you with a ton of information and work that you can't handle, telling you, okay, grow up fast. We want you to grow up as quickly as possible. Then you grow up and you're just haunted by PTSD and trauma and you go nowhere. Refuse that. Just say no. I want none of your garbage. I'm going to enjoy being a novice for as long as I please because it truly doesn't matter. Whether you spend 6 months or 2 years as a novice, at the end of the day doesn't matter. And I would even argue that most people who rush the novice phase give up. They give up because they succumb to novice syndrome. So you want to think long terms without obsessing over the future. Still enjoy it, right? You are going through something pleasurable right now. Enjoy it. Instant gratification is your worst enemy as a novice because it is lurking at every single corner. You're on that raft and you have that much water. Are you going to drink it all the first day because it feels good? No, you'll be dead in 3 days. You want to ration the amount of water you're going to drink. For a novice, it's the same thing. Push away all of that instant gratification. All of that is a part of novice syndrome because you are on a slow grind. All of these pleasure hikes that you're going to actually experience only lead you astray. And they are categorized in, pumps and all of the gimmick stuff that fitness likes to sell you that tells you that you're going to get massive in 2 weeks. All of that participates in this. It's all instant gratification. For you to survive novice syndrome, you need to focus on long-term gratification. The feeling of pride that you're going to actually receive once you've stuck with it for a long time and you get your reward after a long time, not those things that you get immediately. And in terms of practicality, I would say that, again, you want to avoid taking breaks. which constitute instant gratification. When you tell yourself, ah, today I don't really want to train, that's instant gratification. You are going to sacrifice your future for a little bit of pleasure now. I say the pump, why? The pump is the same thing. It's metabolic stress. Yeah, it might feel good and you look big, but guess what you're doing? You're sacrificing worthy training stimulus so that you can look big for 25 minutes, sacrificing the actual size you would have actually built if you hadn't done that in the first place. See how vicious this is? I'm going to continue with the raft analysis. You are having hallucinations. You are giving a lot of energy to reach that island that is not really there. And once you're there, guess what? Not only are you further away from your actual goal, you're tired now. You wasted energy. Do not do that. Don't succumb to ADHD training either. Don't switch all the time. That's part of program hopping. Program hopping is that you're seeking for that instant gratification. Your old program is boring and therefore you want something exciting. Well, guess what? Exciting doesn't equate result or longevity in this sport. It's quite the opposite actually. So refuse that, push that away. And that also goes for all of the bullshit magic pills that YouTube Fitness and just the world in general tries to sell you, telling you that it's going to speed up your novice phase. Of course, take this and you'll be a novice for less time. You'll be bigger faster, stronger faster. This is a trap, okay? It's playing on your fears and insecurities. It knows that you want to grow. If you went and you gave the choice to 100 teenagers to take a pill that turns them into adults, how many would take them? A lot of them. How many would regret that choice? All of them. Why? Because you're just speeding past something that is actually one of the greatest time period of your training journey. So don't do that. And on top of that, of course, all of those magic pills don't work. And this is my next advice number 7. Don't buy anything. And I insist, do not buy anything. You don't need to buy a single thing. You don't need to spend a single penny to make progress in lifting. Lifting is free. It's a free hobby, okay? It's very cheap and none of the supplements you buy are going to make it any better. Refuse that because again, they are taking you away from what truly matters, which is the training. You need to focus. This is a filter. Supplements are, in a sense, a filter. I know many people who quit lifting because of supplements, because they started to focus all of their efforts on actually taking 15 supplements and powders per day, and they just pushed the training away. Why? They were told that the powders were more efficient than the training. That is not true, and it's not possible. You need to not do that. You also want to not get too fancy. You're a novice. You don't need crazy woo-woo training tricks to be able to progress. Anything works for you. What does that mean? People say, oh, anything works for novices. A lot of people use it as an excuse to just have random shitty programs thrown at our beginners. This is not the mindset. If everything works, this means that it frees up a ton of space and time to do something else. That something else being developing your own critical skills and building up experience. A lot of other aspects of YouTube Fitness is going to take you away from that. Like for example, science or like the insane diet lingos that go around nowadays. All of this is removing you from your own self and telling you to seek the truth and improvement in external factors, and it's not working. Okay, you're on that raft. There is no such thing as an entity somewhere in the sky that is going to save you or speed up your journey. You can pray to that false god if you want, but you're not going to get anything out of it. If anything, again, you're going to lose track of where you're wanting to go and you're not going to get anywhere. You will be devoured by Novice Syndrome. Again, we lose a lot of people to that and to the seagulls, to fitness YouTubers. You would think that people who lift and have a passion for this sport would try to protect the weakest member of our community, but they truly don't. They don't give a single fuck. You are just meat to be collected. You're just a walking wallet. That's what you are. You're a wallet with 2 feet. Whatever they can do to take your money, they'll do. They're seagulls, okay? The seagull attacking the turtle is not looking for the well-being of the turtle. They're looking to eat the turtle. 8, you want to maintain cap, right? You're on that raft. If the raft does this, guess what? It's going to take much longer to get to where you want to be. You want to maintain cap. You want to have a strong line of sight with what you want and never deviate from that. And to be able to do that, you have to think sustainable. Always put sustainability first. If a program breaks you in half, and you cannot do a single week without having to take a break, that's a bad program for you. I don't care how much gains you're making, it's not sustainable. Same for a diet. Oh, you're bulking 15 pounds a month. Guess what? That's not sustainable. You're eating foods or supplements that make you feel bad. That's not sustainable. I don't care what you think you're getting from them. It is simply not conducive to you staying in the game. You're going to eventually snap. The biggest culprit of that is the crazy bodybuilding diets that a lot of novices copy from Hollywood stars, and they last 4 days and then they say, oh, lifting is not for me, it's too hard. Well, what you did wasn't lifting. What you did was copying some idiot who eats bland, dry food because he needs to actually carry that image of toughness. You don't need that to lift, okay? You don't need to starve yourself to lift or eat foods that have no taste. You can eat pretty much whatever you want as long as you're not going overboard. So think sustainable. Anything you can do day in and day out is going to be better. And on top of that, you want to get as much as you can from as low as possible. Because everything works for novices. What does that mean? That instead of deadlifting or squatting 3 times a week, why don't you do it 1 time a week? Why not 2 times a week with a variation? Yeah, maybe you don't progress as fast, but guess what? It's better in the long term because you're going to stick to it, you're not going to burn out, and you want to avoid burnout. And this is why I firmly believe that out of the 3 programming principles, volume, intensity, and frequency, the one that novices need to focus on is frequency. No need to bury yourself under waves and waves of volume. No need to kill yourself with 1 rep maxes. Frequency. Start with 2 times a week, up to 3 times a week, and then up the intra-workout frequency by adding sets. Don't up the weight, add a set. Repeat a weight you've already taken. You accumulate high-quality tonnage. This is the best way to think about it. Put frequency first. You want to develop that consistency. That's what you want to build because you have time. You won't build discipline when you're an intermediate or advanced. It's going to be too late. The space I'm freeing you from when I actually explain how to avoid Novice Syndrome can be utilized to build up momentum that will carry you forward. Because I can tell you that, as I explained before, Novice Syndrome is nothing. It's nothing. It's the part where you're the most vulnerable, so we lose the most people. But compared to intermediate and advanced syndrome, it's not much. It lasts for this, and in terms of difficulty, it's here. You're going to end up intermediate, that's this and this. It's going to be a different beast altogether. Don't stress out, but understand that what you're doing right now is easy, and it should be easy. 9, you want to keep a steady baseline and slowly increase the training stimulus. That is critical and something that a lot of people don't understand. What I mean by a steady baseline is that besides the training, you want everything else to stay stable. You want to sleep a certain amount of hours. You want a diet that is balanced and easy to eat day in and day out. You want a daily life that is going to be conducive to your ability to train. All of that is a steady baseline. If at any point you modify the baseline and not the training, you're losing the plot. If you start eating massive amounts of food and the training doesn't actually follow, guess what? You'll just get fat. This directly contradicts the idea that diet is the most important part of training. No, it's not. It's a terrible lie to tell novices. Diet is a baseline. It's a constant. It's not an effort put in, it's just there. Okay? What increases is the training stimulus. So be focused on that. 10. Safety over heroism. Don't risk it all for a PR. Anything that you can do without getting injured is better than something that you do and get injured for. It's talking directly against the instinct of fire that is in every novice. You're getting started, you're pumped up, you want to kill the weights, you want to do this, you want to do that fast, fast, fast. I told you to slow down. Now I'm going to tell you to mellow out a bit. Crazy, right? I'm actually going to tell you to take it easy, right? You're on the raft. There's no need for you to pagaie as fast as possible and be burnt out. Take it easy. You're fine. No need to PR every session. Retake the weights. You did a 4 rep max on the squat for some reason and it was a little bit tough. Hey, guess what? Next time, take it again. It'll still make you grow. I guarantee you that. You don't need to slap that extra disc that now makes you feel anxious about the weight. Conquer that weight, return and add the weight on the bar whenever you feel like it's necessary. For now, you don't need it. Safety over heroism. That goes with form too. Proper form trumps performance, always, because proper form correlates to long-term performance. You want to find the technique that works for you, that you can do day in and day out, and stick to it. Be adaptive and flexible. Be adaptive and flexible, meaning that you want to stay on your toes, you want to look at what's happening. This is a big part of also evading novice syndrome. Novice syndrome is creeping. It's like a feeling of dementia that is lurking over you as you're on that raft, and that is going to make you take bad decisions. That feeling is not coming from you, most likely. So you need to push it away. And to push it away, you just need to be aware of what is going on. A lot of novices have absolutely no idea of what they're doing because they never seek to understand. They've been told that novices need to be good little boys and girls and just shut up and follow instructions. Well, I disagree with that. You're on that raft, and maybe you don't know what you're doing yet, but you're still the one who's on the raft. And eventually, you're going to have to take directions and take decisions because you are going to continuously be the captain of your own boat for the rest of your life. So if you spend your formative period taking orders, guess what's going to happen when you graduate from that? You're going to be waiting for orders that will never come, and you'll be royally screwed. So you want to pay attention, learn as much as you can, actually learn, don't repeat what someone else said. Try to get what you're doing. Anything that you do in your training that you don't understand intimately is a waste of time. You need to be aware of that. 11, don't stress out. Again, take it easy. You're doing it. You are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing right now. You're training. You actually managed to push away Novice Syndrome. You're now in the midst of Novice Syndrome, but it's fine. Because every affliction that Novice Syndrome throws your way is one that you actually push upon your own self. Unlike intermediate and advanced, where you're actually going to have to fight external factors, in this situation, there's no external factors because, as I've just described, you're on a raft, but did I tell you that there is a storm? Did I tell you there is shark? No, you're just on a raft. The raft is going somewhere if you just stay on it, right? But if you start to panic and you start thinking that you're going to be chased down by a kraken or it's going to topple and you jump in the water, yeah, you just died. That's the death of you, that's Novice Syndrome who got your ass. So relax, okay? Don't stress out, take your time. You are being active right now, and it should be enough to make you understand that you are on the right path. Too many novices, they panic. They see someone else who progress faster, they think, okay, I'm not there, so I must be doing something wrong. I must be doing something wrong. And a lot of them quit because of that, because they think, okay, well, it's a clear sign that I'm just not fit for it. Let me tell you something. No one is fit for it, and no one was made to lift. This is a myth. All of the people who tell you I was born to do this, bullshit. You were born to be a clown, most likely because of what comes out of your mouth. But we have free will. We decide what we do. Between someone who quits because of Novice Syndrome and someone who doesn't, guess what the difference was? Their mindset, okay? Their decisions. One decided to stick with it, the other didn't. You want to be that guy over here, okay? And just doing something is going to prove you that you are on the right path. You're not moving at the speed that you want, so what? You'll still get there. It's okay. If you follow those steps, none of what you do will be a waste. The very idea of wasted effort only exists because of comparison. Wasted efforts compared to that guy who did that much and got that result. He's not you. He's not on the raft with you, and he never will be. Focus on you, okay? Stop looking at the neighbor. The grass is always greener, always. Focus on here, the individuality and what you're trying to develop. And just push away the idea that all you do is a waste. Oh, it amounts to nothing, I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah. This is just you throwing a pity party for yourself. It's a syndrome of novice, it's a symptom of Novice Syndrome, reject it. So now that you have the basic guideline, you're good. If you follow all of these rules, you are going to survive that filter, for sure. The problem is that you are on a steady trajectory and you passed one filter, and Novice Syndrome is a continuation of filters. It's not just one, meaning that it's a never-ending challenge. It's never going to stop. So now you need methods to maintain all of that, okay? To tighten all of that and keep it together. The raft might be going where you want it to go. Now you want to maintain the raft. You want to keep it in good condition. So my advice for that is anchor your spirit. You want to turn your motivation into discipline. All of what got you started at some point might die out. You want to find something else, and that something else is called discipline. Too many people are claimed by Novice Syndrome because they lack that. They lack discipline. They are feeling crazy about the weights 1 week. Next week, you talk to them about that, and they say, oh, I just skipped. I didn't want to go. That is not acceptable. You do it. Okay? It's part of the schedule. You have to do it. If you don't, you're of course going to fall off. You're of course going to be claimed by the filter. You want to turn novelty into routine. And that is a little bit scary. A lot of novices don't like to hear that. They think, oh, but isn't routine boring? Well, only if you pick a boring routine. A life that is a routine, that has repeating events, can be a very fulfilling life if you enjoy those events. If you hate them, of course, it's going to be hell on earth. So you want to make it something that is pleasurable. And to do that, you want to keep it fun. You are not a slave, okay? A lot of people talk about lifting like it's that great duty and burden on our shoulders, like we're Atlas carrying planet Earth. That's bullshit. You started lifting because you love it. Don't put that victim complex on your back. It's stupid. It's a willing thing. And this is what makes it tolerable. It's pain that you go through out of your own volition. So there is no complaining aspect, and there is no reason for you to do some things that you don't like. There are a multitude of ways to get big. No need to do an exercise if you don't like it. No need to do a program if you don't like it. It's a problem if you don't like lifting in the first place, because it means you're going to drop off. But if you like lifting, you'll find a way to express that love. I'm sure that you can. Just don't listen to people and are just ways that are set in stone, and do things your own way. You are not a slave again. The raft is not linked to you by a chain. You're free to leave whenever, but you're also free to move on the raft. Remember that all of the positive that lifting bring you are worth it at the end of the day. And compared to pain or to your laziness some days, it's truly nothing. This is part of looking into the future. To be able to make it, to survive Novice Syndrome, you need to have a good idea of what is waiting for you. The man on the raft in the middle of the ocean isn't thinking about the ocean. He's thinking about the island he's going to land on, the coconuts he will find, the women he will be able to meet. He's not thinking about his current plight. The same to you. Enjoy the process, of course. Don't lose sight of it. But at the same time, don't be consumed by it. You're not going to be there forever, okay? Understand that it is but a step in your evolution. And because it is but a step, the filters on your way are also but dust and specks of nothingness that you will easily surpass. Very easily. I don't want to see any repeat offenders. That's point number 14. I know that many people went through several novice phases. Now, while I do stipulate that it is perfectly fine to let that novice phase last for a long time, you do not want to actually go back to it. You don't want to be the guy that was a novice 5 times, because that means that you stopped lifting. You succumbed to Novice Syndrome because now you're going back to the beginning. Guess what you're doing? You're just going through it again and again. This is not leading to any progression. So you don't want to have that type of behavior ingrained in you. I know that it's comfortable. I know that for a lot of people, the novice period is like heaven. They got a slight taste of intermediate and they were like, ugh, I don't like that. I'm going to take a break and we're going to return to the shallow waters of the novice landscape. Because, as I said with my shark example, the shark nursery is cool. The water is warmer. There's algae to hide yourself. There's visibility. It's shallow. It's great. But at some point, if you're a grown-ass shark, you can't keep living there. The prey is not big enough for you. You need the open ocean. The only way for a shark to be able to stay there would be to pull a Benjamin Button and remain and return to the form of a baby shark. Problem is, you're not growing. The very idea of surviving Novice Syndrome is that you're going to eventually get to something bigger and greater. You're not going to stay on that raft forever. And yet that raft is comfortable. It's much easier because, as I said, you're just surviving. You're not really having to fight or anything. But you have to actually kick yourself in the butt and realize that this is not good. You are stagnating. The man who stagnates dies. One of my favorite quotes is, "The man who stops accepting challenges is a man who's already dead." So, you want to stay on the path. If you're on the path and you stop moving and you're going backwards, guess what? You are losing the point. You're not actually allowing the path to be a path, because a path exists and it is meant to be traveled. So push forward, go forth, charge into the adventure, charge into the unknown. The novice period is the known. The unknown is where you're going to be able to grow. It's where your limits lay. And the last point, and the end word on novice syndrome as a whole. Novice syndrome feeds off inactivity and impulsivity, the two of them. And therefore, every single iteration of symptoms I described here are one of the other. Either you're not doing anything, so you gave up, or you're doing too much, and now you're burning yourself out. These two extremes are the antithesis of novice syndrome, because novice syndrome is a passive grind. The raft, as I said, doesn't need you to pagaie. You don't need to actually try to push it on the ocean. It's just going. Just do your part and stay on there. Just survive, okay? Any amount of anything else that you do might lead you to not get anywhere. The only way out, as I said, is that it's that applicability mindset, to stick to it, to stay with it. And I'm actually going to leave you with that. So as I said, I will also be making a video about intermediate syndrome, about advanced syndrome, that should be shorter. If you have any ideas that you would like to share, things that I didn't mention about novice syndrome, please let me know. This was a beginner's guide to lifting. I hope it was informative and helpful, and that is going to prevent you from succumbing to novice syndrome. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.